This video will walk you through the process of updating the firmware on your Flagtronics FT200 or FT remote display device. The first thing you'll need to do is go to flagtronics.com and download the device manager software. You can find that by clicking on Downloads and coming down the page to where you see Software, and you'll see Flagtronics Device Manager. Go ahead and download that to your PC device. And then once you've done that, you can open up the Flagtronics Device Manager software. I've already downloaded it, so now I will open it up. And you can see when the Device Manager software is open, if there is no Flagtronics device connected, it will be scanning for it. I'll note that up at the top, you can see the Device Manager version 1.24.0.0. If there was a new version available of this software or an update, it would show you in a bar up at the top or along here and suggest that you download the update, which is always a good idea before you start updating your devices. So we're going to go ahead now and plug in our device. Each device has a USB-A type cable that is in the wiring harness. If you have installed this device in your car and you can't get to the cable, or it's in an inconvenient location, you can always get a USB-A extension cord that you could connect to that and then have in a location that would be more easily accessible with a laptop computer, for instance. Go ahead and plug our device in. I just heard the chime, which means that Windows recognized it, and shortly thereafter it should pop up on your screen. If it doesn't pop up, you can always click on this drop-down menu. If you have multiple devices, you'll see them all listed there as an option. As we can see right now, the device serial number is 20001925 or 201925. That is our 8-digit serial number that we talk about, making sure you have in your Motorsport Reg garage account that's associated with the device and the car that it's installed in. It will always start with a 2000 number. So here we can see all the information about this device, which is a standard FT200, the firmware version, the bootloader version. Those are two things that are going to require an update today, and we can actually see that in this green bar down toward the bottom. It says bootloader firmware is the version 4.7.4 is available, and the main firmware 8.0.2 is also available for this device. And we can see that we're running 6.5.2, so this device is quite out of date. I can't tell you exactly what date that might be associated with, but my guess is that it's going to be at least more than 1 year old. So we can either click on Update down in this bar, or we can just go down to Firmware Update, and it will bring a window up that will prompt you if you want to update the bootloader and the main firmware. And we want to do that. So I will show you that behind this window, you can see a graphic up at the top. The left side, these are the files that are available. These are the most current files that are available. And if you're connected to the internet, the device manager software will locate those files from the cloud, from Flagtronics, and they will know what's available. If you're not connected to the internet, I suggest you do connect to the internet. You make sure you get those files from Flagtronics. It'll connect, it'll make those accessible. And then if you end up not being on the internet when you update your device, you'll at least have those on your machine. Over on the right side, this is the machine that we're plugged into. This is the device we're plugged into, and you can see those are the firmware versions that are inside the device. So we're going to go ahead and say yes, update the firmware. Now, because this version, the version that's in this device is so old, it's going to ask to do a couple of extra steps. At this point, I would actually skip the log files. There's nothing that's on this device that we need for the future. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to flash it with the newest firmware, and it's going to overwrite the other files that were on there, which really don't matter for us. This is a device that sends and receives, and sometimes that process can take even longer. So we're just going to skip the log files. It's going to do some backing up. You'll hear it chime from time to time as it reboots the FT200 device and goes through its firmware update. Okay, the final component of this, and this is going to happen because the firmware that was in our device was much older than the current version that's being released. If your device was updated at the runoffs, for instance, this would not take this long. So this could take a little bit. You can see this window says this could take up to 200 seconds. I did one recently that took a little bit longer than that. So I'm going to stop talking, and we're probably going to use the magic of video editing to skip ahead in this process. All right, success. Firmware update done. It tells us what it just did. The main firmware was updated. The bootloader firmware was updated. We say got it. Okay, there's one last step here. You can see this line here that says organization, and there's a drop down. There are some specific things that different organizations do that Flagtronics has designed into the firmware for the devices. So as you can see, there is an SCCA version of the firmware. Ideally, you want this in your device. So we're going to do one last update, one last firmware update. As you can see, the main firmware 8.0.2 is the default, but we're going to use the SCCA version, and we're just going to update that really quickly. This update shouldn't take but a few seconds. Yes, we want to update this firmware from the default to the SCCA version. And as you can see, it has now been updated successfully from the default 8.0.2 to SCCA 8.0.6. We've now updated our device. The last thing I want to show you in this is when you plug your device in, it will appear, it's very similar to plugging a USB jump drive in to your computer. So when you do that, it will appear as a drive. Bring this over. So my computer recognized it and assigned it drive letter E. And since it's a hard drive, it's a drive, it has certain files on it. If you ever need to find out what your serial number is, but you don't have Device Manager on the machine that you can plug into, you can see that file right here. It's just a text file in there. There's also a README file that if you click on, it just opens up a text file, and it gives you all that pertinent information that was on that initial screen in Device Manager. Okay, that's it. As always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to SCCA at roadracing@scca.com, or you can reach out to Flagtronics through its website. Thank you for watching this video.